As I stepped onto the stage to receive my diploma, I heard his voice echo across the hall. "You'll never succeed without me." My father's words sliced through the cheers and left a heavy silence hanging in the air. Everyone turned to look at me, waiting for me to break, to shrink. But instead, I took a deep breath, opened my presentation slides, and revealed my fully funded startup, a project I had built in secret for years. In that moment, the entire room went silent, and then they stood up. Graduation day had always been painted in my mind as a moment of triumph, the day I would finally prove to everyone, and especially to myself, that I was enough, that all those long nights and silent struggles meant something. I imagined stepping across that stage to cheers, cameras flashing, and my father standing proudly in the audience, his face soft for once, his eyes shining with pride. But deep down, I knew that was a fantasy I had been holding on to for far too long. My father was a man who measured worth by control. In his eyes, success didn't come from passion or creativity. It came from obedience, from following his blueprint exactly. He had spent my entire childhood drilling into me that I was nothing without him. "You'll never succeed without me," he'd say after every small disagreement, after every B instead of an A, after every moment I tried to assert my own ideas. By the time I got to college, I stopped sharing my dreams with him. I learned to keep my head down, to nod along to his lectures, to let him believe he still held the reins. What he didn't know was that each of his insults had planted a different kind of seed inside me, one that grew in the dark, feeding not on praise, but on defiance. During my sophomore year, I started working on an idea for a startup, a platform designed to connect young entrepreneurs with affordable resources and mentorship. While he thought I was just another aimless liberal arts student, I was building something real. I spent every spare moment coding, pitching to angel investors, and refining my business plan. I learned to speak the language of venture capitalists and bootstrappers alike. There were failures, yes, countless, nights when I wanted to give up, when his voice echoed in my head, telling me I was worthless. But every setback fueled me instead of stopping me. By my final year, I had secured seed funding. My startup had a small but growing team, a working prototype, and partnerships lined up with local business incubators. But I kept it hidden. I wanted the reveal to be mine, on my terms, not his. And so, graduation day arrived. I walked across the quad in my gown, feeling the weight of the moment and the secret burning like a star inside my chest. My father sat in the front row, wearing his favorite gray suit, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He looked at me the same way he always did, as if daring me to fail, as if ready to remind me again that I was nothing without him. As they called my name, I stepped up to the podium. Instead of just taking my diploma and walking off, I held the mic a second longer. I looked out at the sea of faces, feeling my knees almost buckle under the weight of years of silence. Then, right as he stood up and yelled, "You'll never succeed without me," I felt something click into place. I didn't shrink. I didn't run. I took a deep breath, steadied my voice, and spoke into the microphone. "Actually, Dad, I've already succeeded, and I can't wait to show you all exactly how." The entire auditorium froze. You could almost hear the collective intake of breath, as if every person had been pulled into the eye of a sudden, unexpected storm. My father's face turned a deep shade of red. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked like a man who had prepared his entire life for every possible scenario, except this one. I turned slightly to face the audience, feeling my heart hammer in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum line for my next move. "I wasn't planning to say this today," I began, my voice growing stronger with every word. "But sometimes the moment chooses you, whether you're ready or not." I slipped my hand into the pocket of my graduation gown and pulled out a small remote clicker, the kind used for presentations. The big screen behind the podium flickered to life. Instead of the university logo, a sleek modern slide appeared, with my startup's logo glowing at the center. Gasps filled the room. Students leaned forward, professors glanced at each other in confusion. Parents craned their necks to see. "This," I said, gesturing to the screen, "is the startup I've been working on for the past 3 years. It's called SparkBridge. It's a platform designed to connect young creators and entrepreneurs with mentorship and resources they can actually afford." I clicked to the next slide. Stats appeared. Seed funding secured. User growth charts. Screenshots of the app interface. "While some people told me I'd never succeed without them," I continued, turning my eyes briefly to my father, "I built this from the ground up. Every line of code, every late-night pitch, every rejection that turned into an opportunity, I did it on my own." My father's face now looked almost alien, a twisted mix of shock, rage, and something I had never seen before, fear. A professor I barely knew started clapping softly, then another. Slowly, the applause spread like a wave, hesitant at first, then louder, until the entire auditorium roared with cheers. My throat tightened, but I kept going. I wanted today to be about more than a piece of paper. I wanted it to be about the power of choosing yourself, even when the world, even when your own family, tells you that you can't. I paused and looked out at the crowd. For every student here who has been told you're too young, too quiet, too naive, I want you to know that you're not. You're exactly enough as you are. You can build your own table instead of begging for a seat at someone else's. People were on their feet now, clapping, some even shouting words of support. I turned off the screen and set down the clicker. For a moment, I let the sound wash over me, not because I needed their approval, but because I had finally spoken my truth out loud in the bright light for everyone to see. My father stumbled out of his seat, face pale, and pushed his way toward the exit. But I didn't chase him. I didn't owe him that anymore. I looked up at the sea of faces again, the sea that had once felt so threatening. Today, it felt like an ocean carrying me forward. As I stepped down from the podium, diploma in hand, I felt weightless, not because I had proven him wrong, but because I had finally proven myself right. As I stepped off the podium, I felt every cell in my body alive, humming with a freedom I had only ever dreamed about. Students I barely knew reached out to high-five me or grab my hand. Professors nodded and clapped, their eyes bright with the spark of something like pride, or maybe relief, as if they too had wanted someone to break the script all along. I glanced back briefly at the stage. The giant screen, now dark, still seemed to glow in my mind. The logo of SparkBridge felt less like a brand and more like a living heartbeat, proof that I had chosen my own path, brick by brick. The line of graduates moved forward slowly as each name was called, but no one was really listening to the names anymore. All eyes were on me as I made my way across the stage to receive my diploma. The dean met me at the center, his hand already extended. "I think this belongs to you," he said, a knowing smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I shook his hand firmly, my fingers wrapping around the diploma that had once felt like the finish line. But now, it felt like a door opening to something so much bigger than a piece of paper. "Congratulations," he added in a low voice only I could hear. That was the most honest speech I've ever heard on this stage. "Thank you," I whispered back, my voice steady, almost surprised by its calmness. As I turned to face the audience, they rose to their feet again, a thunderous standing ovation crashing around me. I could see parents pulling their children closer, students wiping tears, and even some faculty members standing with their hands over their hearts. For so long, I had feared their eyes on me. Now I realized their eyes didn't define me. They reflected back the truth I had finally dared to share. I held the diploma above my head for a moment, not as a trophy, but as a symbol of late nights coding under a flickering dorm lamp, of rejections that had fueled me, of whispered, "You can't," that had become, "Watch me." When I finally stepped down onto the main floor, I felt a rush of people move toward me. Classmates hugged me, some crying, some laughing, some just shaking their heads in stunned admiration. "You're incredible," one girl sobbed, clutching my arm. "I thought I was the only one building something in secret. You just gave me so much hope." "You've just changed everything," another student said, his voice shaky. "We don't have to keep hiding anymore." Their words washed over me like a warm rain, each one soaking into places I hadn't realized were still dry and aching. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the exit door swing shut. My father gone. For a split second, I felt that old sting, the instinct to chase, to explain, to apologize for shining too brightly, but I didn't move. Instead, I looked around at all the new faces, at this sudden, unexpected community rising around me like a wave. This was my real family now, the ones who understood what it meant to build quietly, to fight battles no one else saw, to finally step into the light without permission. In that moment, I felt the truth settle deep into my bones. I hadn't just graduated from college, I had graduated from him, from the smallness he wanted to keep me in, from every lie he made me believe about who I was and what I could be. After the ceremony, the campus courtyard transformed into a sea of hugs, photos, and flying graduation caps. Laughter and happy tears filled the air, but around me, it all felt different. Electric, raw, and deeply real. A line of people started to form around me. Former classmates, old project partners, even strangers from other departments came forward, each one with their own version of "thank you" or "you inspired me today." A girl from my freshman year study group approached timidly, her hands twisting the edge of her gown. "I always thought you were just quiet," she said, her voice trembling. "But today you were the loudest person in the room without even yelling." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I reached out and hugged her, feeling her shoulders shake. It took me a long time to realize I didn't need to be loud to be powerful, I whispered. When she pulled away, she wiped her tears and laughed shakily. "I'm going to start my art collective now. No more waiting for permission." "Do it," I said, smiling so wide it hurt. Nearby, a professor I had always admired but had been too shy to approach came over, eyes bright. "I've taught here for 20 years, he said, gripping my shoulder firmly, "and I've never seen courage like that on this stage. You didn't just graduate today, you lit a fire in this place." I thanked him, my heart pounding. Eventually, the crowd began to thin. Friends left for family dinners, photo shoots, and celebration parties. I stayed behind for a few minutes, standing alone on the now empty stage where I had made my reveal. I looked out at the rows of empty chairs, still feeling the echo of the applause in my bones. A soft breeze lifted the corners of my gown, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down by my father's words or by the fear of not being enough. I thought about the future. Sparkbridge wasn't just a side project anymore. It was alive, and after today, it had a whole new momentum. Messages from investors and potential partners were already flooding my phone. Students had asked for internship opportunities. Local entrepreneurs wanted to collaborate. I imagined an office space filled with young, hungry dreamers, workshops, mentorship sessions, community events. All the things I had once only dared to scribble in my notebook during late-night study breaks. I thought about my father again, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or sadness. I felt Release. His voice had been so loud for so long that I hadn't noticed mine growing underneath it, quiet but steady, waiting for its turn. And today, it finally got to speak. I stepped down from the stage and started walking across the courtyard, the sun setting in deep golds and pinks around me. My phone buzzed again with new messages, but I didn't rush to answer. For the first time, I let myself savor the moment. I walked past a small group of students taking selfies. One of them noticed me and called out, "Hey, you're the startup girl. You're amazing." I laughed, raising my hand in a wave. "Thank you," I called back. As I reached the campus gates, I paused and looked back one last time. The halls, the stage, the rows of seats. They had all been part of the cage I thought I had to stay in, but now they felt like stepping stones, each one leading me out into a life I had finally claimed as my own. When I finally stepped out beyond the campus gates, the city stretched ahead of me like an open book, blank pages waiting to be filled. The weight that had pressed down on my shoulders for years was gone, replaced by a quiet, powerful certainty humming through my veins. I turned my phone back on and scrolled through the dozens of notifications, emails from investors asking for meetings, messages from classmates wanting to join SparkBridge, and even a few from professors offering to support as advisors. For a moment, I closed my eyes and let the noise wash over me. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, I felt alive. More alive than I had ever felt sitting in any classroom or at any dinner table with my father. I thought about going home, but for some reason, I didn't want to, not yet. I wanted to hold on to this feeling of movement, of possibility. So I kept walking. I wandered into a small coffee shop just off campus, a place I had often passed but never dared to enter when I felt small and invisible. The warm light spilling from its windows felt like an invitation. Inside, the barista looked up and gave me a friendly nod. "Graduation day, huh?" he asked, eyeing the gown still draped around my shoulders. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Best day of my life." I ordered a simple black coffee and found a small table by the window. As I sipped, I pulled my laptop out of my bag and opened it for the first time that day. The SparkBridge homepage glowed back at me, its logo bright and alive. I navigated to the admin panel and started drafting an announcement post. Today, I revealed SparkBridge to the world. What started as a small dream in my dorm room is now a living, breathing community. To every dreamer out there who has been told you're nothing without someone else, you are more than enough. You don't need permission to build. You don't need to wait to be chosen. Choose yourself. I paused and let my fingers hover above the keyboard. For a moment, I thought about my father again. Would he read this? Would he understand? But the truth settled over me gently. It didn't matter anymore. My story wasn't his to control, and his approval was no longer my fuel. I hit publish. Immediately, comments and messages started to appear. Strangers thanked me for my courage. Young students shared their own hidden projects and fears. One girl wrote, "Today you gave me permission to exist loudly. Thank you." I pressed my palm to my chest, feeling my heart beating hard and steady. As the sun dipped lower outside the window, I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. I took one last slow sip of coffee, savoring the taste, the warmth, the stillness before the next wave of life would come rushing in. When I finally stood to leave, I felt a deep, undeniable knowing in my bones. I had not just graduated today. I had stepped fully into the life I was meant to live, a life I had built with my own hands, on my own terms. I pushed open the door of the cafe and stepped out into the twilight, the city lights blinking on around me like stars. I walked forward, no map in hand, no father's voice in my head, just the open road ahead and my own voice, finally loud and clear, guiding me into everything that was waiting. Sometimes your true graduation isn't from a school, it's from the limits others place on you. Subscribe for more stories of breaking free and building your own future, one bold step at a time.